There's a peculiar kind of quiet that comes with having no friends. It's not the kind of silence that calms you after a storm. It's the kind that reminds you of what's missing. You might sit in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter and conversations, yet feel an unmistakable void, a hollow space where meaningful connections should be. Why do we end up here, longing for bonds that once seemed so natural and effortless? What does this loneliness reveal about our lives, our priorities, and the choices we make without even realizing it? Friendship isn't just a nicety, it's a cornerstone of human existence. We are social creatures, wired for connection, yet somehow many of us find ourselves isolated, carrying the burden of disconnection in a world brimming with people. If friendships are the soul's nourishment, why are so many of us starving? This absence of companionship isn't random. It reflects something deeper about the way we live, how we think, and the values we place on relationships. A lack of friends isn't just a circumstance, it's a signal. But what is it trying to tell us? 1. Not prioritizing friends in your life. The pace of modern life often turns relationships into afterthoughts. Work deadlines, family obligations, and personal goals dominate the calendar, leaving little room for the quiet joys of friendship. And let's be honest, when was the last time you made an active effort to nurture a friendship? Many people treat their social connections like houseplants they forgot to water, hoping they'll somehow thrive on neglect. Imagine this. You're scrolling through your phone on a Sunday evening, staring at the list of unread messages from people you genuinely like, but haven't replied to in weeks. "I'll get back to them tomorrow," you tell yourself for the 100th time. Yet tomorrow comes and goes, and the message remains unanswered. Over time, relationships falter not because of conflict, but because of neglect. Slow, steady, unintentional neglect. Friendship requires effort, but effort feels heavy in a world where everyone is trying to do too much. And here's the bitter irony. We push friendships aside in favor of other priorities, only to realize too late that those priorities feel hollow without someone to share them with. Life gets busy, but meaningful relationships are what make the chaos worthwhile. If friendships aren't thriving in your life, it's time to ask yourself, are you truly too busy, or have you simply forgotten how much they matter? 2. Waiting for people to invite you out. There's a strange paradox to loneliness. It often feeds itself. You sit at home, hoping someone will call or text, imagining scenarios where you're the life of a gathering you were never invited to. But here's the truth. Friendship isn't a waiting game. Sitting on the sidelines, hoping someone else will make the first move, is like expecting a plant to bloom without ever planting a seed. Picture this. It's a Friday night, and you're scrolling through social media, watching stories of people laughing, dancing, and clinking glasses. You sigh, feeling left out and wondering why no one thought to invite you. Yet, how often have you extended an invitation yourself? Waiting for others to take the lead in relationships is a recipe for disappointment. People might assume you're busy, uninterested, or content in your solitude. Or maybe they're waiting for you to make the first move too. The truth is, initiating doesn't make you desperate, it makes you brave. Extending an invitation shows that you care, that you value connection enough to take the risk of rejection. And yes, rejection is a possibility, but isn't it better to try and fail than to sit alone, wondering what could have been? Friendship thrives on reciprocity, not passivity. If you're waiting for an invitation, maybe it's time to send one instead. 3. Friends moving on. Sometimes the absence of friendship isn't about neglect or hesitation. It's about the natural ebb and flow of life. People change. They move cities, switch careers, start families, or simply grow in directions you can't follow. One day, you're inseparable. The next, you're strangers with shared memories. Imagine your closest friend from college landing a job across the country. At first, you promise to keep in touch, video calls, regular texts, and the occasional visit. But as the months go by, the calls become less frequent, the texts more perfunctory. New people fill their world, while your routines remain the same. The bond doesn't break in a single moment. It erodes gradually, like a shoreline worn away by the tide. This is one of the hardest truths about friendship. It's not always meant to last forever. Sometimes people move on, not out of malice, but because life pulls them in a different direction. It's easy to feel abandoned, to mourn what was lost, but this doesn't mean you're doomed to loneliness. New connections await if you're willing to embrace change. The end of one friendship often makes room for another, but only if you're open to the possibility. 4. Not meeting enough like-minded people. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who don't understand you. It's not about being alone. It's about feeling disconnected, even in a crowd. Like-minded friendships, those built on shared values, passions, and perspectives, are rare treasures. But finding them in today's fragmented world can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. Imagine attending a party where every conversation feels like a script you weren't given. People talk about topics you don't care about, laugh at jokes you don't find funny, and exchange pleasantries that feel hollow. You leave feeling more isolated than when you arrived. The problem isn't the lack of people, it's the lack of connection. Finding like-minded friends requires more than luck. It requires intention. It's about seeking out spaces where your interests align with others. Join a book club, attend a workshop, or take up a hobby that excites you. But here's the catch: you have to show up. Finding your people means stepping outside your comfort zone, risking awkwardness, and putting yourself out there. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because when you find someone who truly gets you, the effort feels like nothing compared to the joy of real connection. 5. Changing jobs or working from home. Work has always been a fertile ground for friendships. Shared projects, lunch breaks, and office banter create bonds that often extend beyond the workplace. But what happens when you leave a job or transition to remote work? The connections you once took for granted can vanish overnight, leaving you adrift in a sea of solitude. Think about the shift to working from home. At first, it seems like a dream. No commute, no office politics, and the freedom to work in pajamas. But as weeks turn into months, you start to miss the casual conversations, the shared laughter, the human energy that can't be replicated over Zoom. Remote work might offer convenience, but it often comes at the cost of connection. Changing jobs presents its own challenges. Walking into a new workplace means starting from scratch, building relationships with people who already have their own circles. It's intimidating, but it's also an opportunity. Every new job, every new environment is a chance to form fresh connections if you're willing to make the effort. Friendship in the workplace isn't automatic. It's a choice. And like all relationships, it requires vulnerability, openness, and a willingness to try. Friendship is a reflection of the life you build. When it's missing, it's not a judgment of your worth, but a call to action. It's a reminder to prioritize what truly matters, to step out of your comfort zone, and to nurture the connections that make life meaningful. Because at the end of the day, the quality of your friendships isn't just about who you meet. It's about how much of yourself you're willing to give.